So Cathryn Marshall is an amazing person. If you don't know her yet, you're going to want to know her. And not only do you want to know her, you're going to want to follow her, you want to get involved, because she delivers so much value. There's nothing short of value. She creates value within her life, she turns around and shares it. A small example of the value that she is and represents, last week she launched her second book. She didn't do a giant campaign. She didn't hire a promotion company. She just put it out there on Facebook. 3 days later, it hit the bestseller. Somebody who didn't know Cathryn reached out and said, hey, can you help me? I know you advise a lot of people. Can you help me? I'd like to know how to sell my book and get it on the bestseller in 3 days. And she wrote back and she goes, that would be 25 years of giving consistent value. So anything new she puts out, her company, her people who follow her already know the value that she's going to give. So her reputation precedes her. She's a regular guest on NBC, and she has launched several online programs. She has created, launched, and continues to grow those. She can sit here in a relaxed manner and also knows what's going on in the future. She's planning the future, not for herself. That's already taken care of. She's planning our future. So I would like to introduce Cathryn Marshall. Her topic is going to be how to create revenue and relationships. Let's give a big hand.
Okay. Is my mic on? Can you all hear me okay? All right. Words are so important. The words we use are critical. Words dictate the ideas and the actions that we're going to take. Words carry a vibration. They carry meaning. They carry what we're going to do next. We're going to step away from the other mic. But the words that we use, we don't always know how things are going to unfold, right? We've heard a lot of words here. We've heard words that we've talked about risk management. We've talked about cybersecurity. We've talked about a lot of things in this room that have made us think. And the words are so critical. We can use a word like love. We can use a word like leadership. We can use a word like panic. We can use a word like crisis. And the way that we're conditioned to respond to those words is going to dictate what happens in our life next. Now, a few minutes ago, I was going to the restroom, and one of the leaders in this building, Miguel, was consoling one of the wait staff, and she's sobbing. I went into the restroom, had a conversation. I came out. Miguel was still consoling this person with love and kindness. Folks, that's leadership. Miguel runs the team here. Miguel is in charge of the wait staff. These people work to the bone to make sure that this happens. So if you know anything about Buckhead Club, and if you don't know anything about Keon Williams, it comes from leadership, right? We've talked about the problems with leadership. We've talked about burnout. We've talked about so many things, but what I want to do today is combine for you the concept of artificial intelligence and emotional intelligence. Now, if you're not quite sure what emotional intelligence is, or EQ, what that is, it's context. It's the context that I just gave you about a leader of the wait staff consoling a young woman who's in tears for more than 10 minutes, and it looked like he wasn't stopping anytime soon. It's the context of what we've experienced here and what we're going to do when we leave this event. Now, 2 years ago, I was here having lunch with a friend of mine, Anna Powers, and we're having a very animated lunch, and this big guy leans over and says, "Ladies, I don't mean to eavesdrop, but I am, and what you're talking about is fascinating." And that is how I met Mr. Keon Williams, right? He was a lot bigger then. And he said, we were in another event. He said, I've got some weight to lose. What I didn't know was that he was a type 2 diabetic, and he was struggling. Now, we could have said Keon's physical body was in crisis. And we had lunch, we talked, we got to know each other. So he didn't just jump up and go, hey, I need some help. I spent over 20 years doing what Mr. Lee Haney does, teaching people how to get healthy. But I was born into business. And so when I met Keon, he said, I'd like to lose some weight. I've got a problem. But it was sort of like he put it out there. But when you're born into business, you realize the first thing that you have to do is you've got to directly connect. You've got to get to know someone. So the first concept I want to share with you in terms of change and change management is you've got to directly connect with people. How are we going to convince our leaders that cybersecurity is critical, important, there are holes? You can literally, sir, you just said you can hack into anything pretty much, right? So how are we going to convince people that this is important, that our data needs to be secure? We've got to directly connect. And I don't mean just, hey, how's it going? I mean, you got to be Miguel. You got to really care. You got to put in some time to directly connect with leadership, with boards, with the people who hold the keys to really making the change happen at the top. So this concept of direct connection, I've been in business since I can remember. Like I said, I've had business cards. I've had multiple businesses. I grew up in business. I don't carry a business card. And I'll tell you why. I would love to just get you in my phone. Why? Because I'm going to need to directly connect with you. And let's face it, life and business is flooding in. I think we would all agree we could use a little bit more time in the day. Maybe we could use a little bit more energy, right? And we want to make a difference. I personally believe that people are good. 98% of us are good people that want to do a good job, and we really want to be great parents and friends and mentors, and we want good things to happen in the world. I think it's probably the 2% that are truly the hackers, truly the bad guys out there that we need to be seriously concerned about. But if we're going to evoke change, we've really got to directly connect. Now, what I'm going to do here today with all of you, this is going to be interactive, so do be aware I may call on you if you're on your phone. Just kidding. I would never embarrass anybody, but this is going to be interactive today. So what my goal is today is to take artificial intelligence, teach you some things about emotional intelligence, that EQ quotient, bring it together so that we can evoke some change and make miracles happen. Now, where I'm going with this is we're going to become highly motivated for self and others. Now, does anyone know the first component of motivation? What do you need to have to get motivated?
Fear.
It's usually fear, right. There's got to be a driving force to get us to do one thing. We've got to opt in, right? We've got to say, hey, I'm in to make a difference. Whether it's self, others, an organization, whether you join Buckhead Club, whether you decided you're going to work out, whether you listen to Mr. Lee Haney and you're going to take your health by the reins and put it first. You've got to actually opt in. It's really important. So the second thing that you're going to need to get motivated, or to get anyone else motivated, is you've got to get some results. And this is a big deal because most people think motivation comes from out there, carrot and stick. You got to opt in, and then you've got to get some type of a result. Would you keep putting money in a bank account if it was just dropping out the bottom? Of course not. So as I get into this concept, there is one third piece of motivation you're going to need to remember as we go through this talk today, because this is critical. Your why. Now, this has been scientifically proven. These are the three components of motivation. So if people are necessary to evoke change, and we're talking about the leaders, the people at the top, the people on the board, the people who are making the decisions, the people who are going to implement teaching and training and take advantage of what Kelly has to offer, right? If we're going to put this into place to truly become safe and secure, and change the words, change the vibration, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to understand motivation. So 3 things in terms of motivation. We've got to opt in, we've got to get some type of a result, and we've got to stay connected to the why. Now, let me give you an example. AI, artificial intelligence. I told you I worked as a personal trainer. So we're going back to 1998. I'm working in the gym as a personal trainer. And we had clients come in who literally spent an hour in traffic each way. Some of them were business owners. Most of them were employees. And that was their oasis to come into the gym. There was a man who came in named Steve Sobel. He owned a company with 2 locations called Westbury Carpets. Anyone in Atlanta remember Westbury Carpets? You do, Ann, of course, you're in the design business. So Westbury Carpets, Steve Sobel was the owner, big teddy bear of a man, a lot like Key. Just a sweetheart, talked to everybody, loved coming to the gym. So he talked to everyone, we got to know him, and he took my class. I taught cardio kickboxing. I was new at this business of personal training. And he came to me one day and he said, I love your class, but I'm going to be out of class for a while. And I said, well, Steve, what's going on? He looked really serious. And he said, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And he said, I have esophageal cancer, and I've been given a 30% chance of survival. 30%. He said, there are some new treatments out that I'm going to be going through, and I'm really concerned. And so here I am, personal trainer, kickboxing teacher. And I said, well, what are we going to do? Because in order to evoke change, we've got to do something. Steve and I had the direct connect. We had a working relationship. I was fairly new in Atlanta. I did not know a lot of people. So I had an email list. And I went to that email list, and I said, I'm going to send an email to everyone that I know. And I said, I have this friend who's going through this serious situation with cancer. Could you please pray or send some good vibes to my friend? I wanted to include everyone, and I didn't want to offend anyone. Not everyone was going to be of prayer. Not everyone was going to be okay with me bringing this request, I thought, and I was very timid. I had 12 people on that email list, 12 people. And what happened was Steve went through treatment. He lost a lot of weight. He was out of the gym for about 6 months, and he came back. And he said, I think I'm going to make it. And I don't want to get emotional here, but Steve said to me, do you know, of all the things that everyone did for me, that email that you sent out was the thing that got me to think perhaps I was going to make it. Now, the thought process is all powerful. The belief system trumps everything. This man had a 30% chance of survival. That was my first experience with what I would call a very simple form of artificial intelligence, an email list. Now, the words are so important. Steve made it. He went on to have several more years living with his wife, who her name is Happy. I said, is that her real name? He said, yes, that's her real name, and we are very happy. I can't wait to get home, kick my shoes off, and have a drink with Happy and be happy. The love of his life. He went on to have many more years, great years. And in 2008, when the market crashed, Steve invited everybody in to his business, and he put on lunches. And they made it through the recession. And I remember feeling so honored when he told the story of that prayer chain, that request that literally changed his thinking, that he credited with his survival. Now, when I said the words are very important, this is critical. So we're going to directly connect with people, and then we've got to do something. We've got to make something happen. But the words are context, right? The words are, it's like the cup is content, and the words are context. So as we're getting into this process of convincing or converting someone to opt in to making cybersecurity a priority, I will tell you, we've got to convert the mindset combined with the skill set to evoke a result. Now, I specialize in results. You don't know much about me, but I was a social worker, therapist, case manager before I ever spent 20 years building personal training teams and being one of the top personal trainers in Atlanta. I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Lee Haney when I had built a team of 16 personal trainers at Dunwoody Baptist Church. And Lee came through to check out my program, and I thought, oh my gosh, what an honor. I've got Mr. Lee Haney coming by to check out my program. And we shook hands, and we spent about 20 minutes talking in the basement of the church about building personal training programs to help people become healthy with a spiritual component. So this concept of conversion, how many people here choose a word for the year? A few of you do. Aaron does. So I choose a word every year because when you choose a word to focus on, amazing things unfold. I chose the word give a few years ago. I wanted to give more. I was hitting burnout. And I said, I don't think I can give anymore. And I said, you know what? I'm going to have to give a whole lot more if I'm going to get through this stretch of burnout. Many of you have been through working 16-hour days for years. And I'll share a little bit with you about that later. But, you know, sometimes we're called to do more than our capacity can fulfill. When I chose the word give for the year, I asked my friend, she said, you got to pick a word for the year. And this friend of mine is a goofball. She's a little crazy. She's a lifelong student. But if Patty calls me, I pick up the phone because she's going to make me laugh. Do y'all have one of those really crazy friends? When she was young, she came from a family of celebrities and an exceptionally crazy family. So she used to take a break from family life. She would go check herself into a mental hospital. True story. She was not mentally ill. She was so well off, she said everyone in the hospital followed her around because they thought she had the keys to get out. So when you have a friend who tells you stories like this, when she calls, you pick up the phone, and when she says, you got to pick a word for the year, I said, okay. I said, I'm going to pick 3 words. She said, nope. You need to pick one word. Because when you focus on one word, amazing things are going to unfold. So I'm hitting burnout. I choose this word give. I said, uh-oh, I'm not only going to have to give a little bit more. I'm going to have to give 1,000 times more to my clients, to myself, to my son, to my friends, to my family. Because to give is to receive. See, you know this stuff. You guys are good. To give is to receive. So I use the word give. And what showed up? Energy, revival, resilience. So every day I wrote down the word give for a year. And what came in was more time, more money, more energy, resilience, the what next. Now, as I mentioned, most of us could use a little bit more time in the day. Some of us could use more energy. Some of us could use more money. Some of us could use better relationships in our workplace, maybe with our family. I don't know, do y'all have family? Can it be challenging? Right? I come from a long line, and I say this with love, of mental illness and addiction. Come from a long line of that. My grandmother was in and out of mental hospitals, and she was the most kind, loving, sweet woman. I don't want to get too close to the mic here. But she would say to me, you know, I've had my mental troubles, but I'm really okay. And so, you know, we all deal with this. Everyone knows someone who's dealing with addiction, right? Everyone knows someone who's dealing with cancer. We heard Jen's story. You may know Bernadette, who was here with us, who's one of our networking family members who's very close to me. Her husband's dealing with cancer. They gave him 3 to 6 months when he was diagnosed. It's now 18 months later. She showed up. She was the girl with the blonde hair and the pink dress yesterday, and she was here today. And by the way, if you see Bernadette, it's her birthday today. So wish her a happy birthday. But that's called resilience and showing up and sharing your story. So I think we all want to make a difference. Like I said, I've spent my lifetime talking to people. I was a social worker, case manager. I do believe that people are good, most of us. Clearly not all of us. I think most of us want to make a difference in our own lives, in our children's lives, in our friends, our family, maybe our dog. Some of us are dog lovers, right? Sometimes the pets are the family. We want to make a difference, and we want to do right by people. So when we get into this concept of evoking change, of motivating self in others, so let's say we've got someone, we want to get something done such as we want to make cybersecurity a top priority. What I'm going to teach you today is the art of conversion. The art of conversion. Now, we've got to understand those concepts of motivation. It is not going to come from, if you smoke, you're going to die. If you don't lose weight, you're going to suffer. It doesn't work that way, folks. We've got to remember, motivation comes from three things. It comes from opting in. It comes from getting results. And it comes from your why. Now, we all have a different why, right? For some of us, that why is personal development. For some of us, that why is taking care. Bernadette is highly motivated in her business. She's caring for her husband. That's her why. For some of us, that why is a charity. For some of us, that why is we want to pay off the house. We all have a different why, but I think you've got to get clarity about your why. Because as important as the words are, the why is the thing that will keep you going. The why is the thing that will get you out of bed when you don't feel like it, right? The why is what's going to motivate you and keep you moving and keep you going when the going gets tough. Because let's face it, everyone is going to go through tough times. We're all going to go through loss. We're all going to go through change. And as my friend Joe says, ain't no one of us getting out here alive, right? We're all going to be here for a little while. So when you want to make a difference, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to get people to opt in and buy in. So one of the things that I love to share is talk to people from a heart-centered space. Find out what's important to them personally and professionally. So as you get to know someone, find out exactly what's important to them. When I got to know Key, I said, wow, what's important to him? Do you know this man has 5 children? He wears it well. 5 children. His children, his family is important to him. He's a very spiritual person. That is who he is. In a very beautiful, non-judgmental way, he really is the walking divine epitome of a husband, father, and spiritual leader. And if you get to know him, I don't believe he's got a mean bone in his body. But you want to meet people and find out what's important to them. And here's where people make the mistake. They start trying to get people to opt in before we've built a relationship. I don't know Barry very well, but when I do get to know him, I know he's an attorney. I know we've got friends in common, but I want to find out what's important to Barry. Barry, what's the most important thing to you in your life? Your family. I would have guessed that, but I'm going to ask him about that. Barry, what about your family is so important?
They live well, that they grow, that they're spiritual, that they have the resources. Good life.
Who in your family is so important? What's your wife's name? Susie. What are your boys' names? Jonathan and Ryan. Do they live here in Atlanta? Okay. So we've just found out he's married with 2 boys, and he's a spiritual person. Do you see that? It took all of 20 seconds. But so many people skip over that step, right? We don't find out who people really are because people are in that head space, not that heart space. And when you find out who people are and what's important to them, all of a sudden, they're more willing to opt into your idea and what you need to convey in terms of what's in it for them. So there's this acronym. I know we promise not to do acronyms, right? But it's WIFM. Does everyone know what that is? WIFM? Aaron, what does it mean? What's in it for me? So I could say, Barry, we're having a get-together. And it's a family get-together. We would love to invite Susie and the boys. And what's in it for you is I've got some people who really want to know some lawyers. We've actually opened a legal chapter. I don't know if you're aware of that. And it's headed up by Cherish, who's a member of this club. And Cherish is having an event on the 22nd. I would love for you to come and meet some of the other attorneys. And what type of law do you do?
Intellectual property.
Would you believe we don't have anyone in intellectual property? Barry, these people are looking for you. I promise they want to put some money in your bank account. There's a business attorney. There is a couple of divorce attorneys. There are people that have charities that are involved with attorneys. And the event is on the 22nd. Does Susie like red wine? This is actually a wine event. Do you see how we're getting somewhere? Barry, what else is Susie into? Gardening. I'm sure we could invite someone from the Botanical Gardens to greet her there. And what are her favorite flowers?
She loves roses. She grows roses.
I do too. Great. I don't grow them. I love them. All right. So we know some things already. So if we directly connect and we build a story and a scenario around what's in it for me, this is really important. We've got to go deep instead of staying shallow. We've got to get to know people for what's in it for them. And we've got to build a scenario to get the opt-in. You see where I'm going here? To get a result. And there has to be a whole lot of what's in it for me. It can't just be what Cathryn wants. It's got to be what Barry wants for me to build a relationship with Barry. And I've got to really figure out quickly, because we're moving in a fast-paced world, how do we connect? How do we connect? So the first thing that I'm going to do with Barry, I'm going to look him up on social media. Now, I know he's got a LinkedIn profile, correct? How did I know that? He's an attorney. Of course he's got a LinkedIn profile, right? So I'm going to connect with him on LinkedIn. Then I'm going to go looking for him on other sources of social media. And I might say, Barry, I do know that you're in a networking group with my friend Erin. I see that you've attended events together. And so I'm going to net weave this relationship. And I'm going to find out exactly what he wants, where he's going, and then we've got to make something happen. That's where things really start to pick up speed. So for all of us, we want to improve our skill set. This is emotional intelligence. As I get to know more about Barry, I might just open that Facebook or that Instagram or that profile on LinkedIn and see a whole lot about Barry. And that's going to take me all of about 2 minutes. But if I didn't do my due diligence, if I didn't do my research, I might say something political, and maybe Barry's on the other side. That would be a huge mistake. Did we understand? Huge mistake, right? I might be on the wrong team. So what I want to do is get to know you for you, whether we agreed or disagreed about politics or religion or whether Buckhead should become its own city or not. We could still have a heart-centered connection, and we might have a lively discussion. But again, if we build rapport. I'm trained as a social worker. Now, some people will say, well, you can't fix it, you can't teach people. I would venture to argue that you can teach people emotional intelligence. You can teach people how to work cohesively and collectively. And the way that you do that is this skill called empathy. So empathy, if you're not familiar with what that is, most people know what sympathy is. What's your name? I'm sorry. Lori. So Lori, if someone close to you passed in your family, I would have sympathy, and I would say, Lori, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. That is a sympathetic response. Most of us are familiar with it. Empathy is Bernadette understanding what Jen with Giving Kitchen went through with her husband going through cancer, saying you've got 6 months to live. There's an empathetic connection. Lori, I don't know anything about you, but I know you lost them. I can be very sympathetic, but I cannot be empathetic to your situation without more information. So empathy is thank you. Empathy is standing in that person's shoes. So where do we make the mistakes? We start selling before connecting and serving, right? I don't know about you, my inbox in LinkedIn is jammed full of things that I have no connection with, right? So selling before serving is a big problem. The next problem that I see with artificial intelligence, we start automating things that need to be personal, and we make personal things that need to be automated. Those are the biggest problems that I see out there, meaning somebody opts in and wants to find out information. Instead of having a personal conversation, people kick off a calendar link, and you lose that opportunity to make a personal connection. So I want you to turn to someone at your table and tell them something about something that is seriously important to you. We already know about Barry a little bit. It's his family. But turn to someone, and I'm going to give you all of 2 minutes to connect. And you got 2 minutes for each of you to tell about something that's important. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to bring you back to the room. Okay, time's up. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Oh, you're so engaged with each other. Okay. So, we've learned some good things about each other, and do you see how much we like each other as people? You don't even want to come back and hear from me again. You love me too. So, the thing is we find other people very interesting and engaging, and you just made the most important connections you can possibly make, and it just took a couple of minutes, right? So I told you a little bit about I have a background in fitness. So the way that I got into fitness is I at one point was overweight, deconditioned, out of shape. I was seriously addicted to sugar, and I had a real problem with overeating. So when my son was small, I literally struggled with binge eating, and I hired a personal trainer who not only taught me how to eat, he taught me how to get in touch with who I really was. And if you've ever struggled with overeating, and I'm telling you, I'm 4'11", I was 34 pounds overweight. What I didn't know is it was going to become one of my biggest challenges in life to figure out that the numbers never lie. And like Mr. Lee Haney taught us, I figured out the formula to become fit fast and make it last. I wrote a book called Simple Fat Burn as a personal trainer, sold over 4,000 copies. Without even trying, quite honestly. That was not a big focus of mine. But I helped hundreds of people go on to teach hundreds of people who taught hundreds of people how to burn fat fast and make it last. And people would say, well, what is it? I said, well, it's a book, it's a program, it's a way of life. I went on to create multiple businesses that would not only teach people how to help people, but teach those people how to go to the next level and in very simple terms, teach other people. So I was a single mom raising my son. I got divorced when he was 4 years old, and I was struggling. I was working as a personal trainer. Remember when I mentioned 16-hour days, long days, supporting my son, and I wasn't just struggling with my food. I was struggling with everything. I was in and out of court. Don't ever get addicted to court TV. You may end up there. I'd say, are you an attorney? I said, no, I'm the plaintiff or the defendant again. So I was in court for 10 years. Seemed like we get out, we were right back in. Multiple issues. I was struggling with my relationships. I was struggling with struggling. And you all have probably been in that place or know someone, if it's not one thing, it's another. I was struggling financially as a single parent. I spent way more money on the attorney fees that I'm very grateful I did. I won every case that I was involved in. It was worth it. I spent more money on attorney fees than I ever got in child support. I had racked up a lot of debt. If you've ever had a financial problem, don't raise your hand. I did. I was $400,000 in debt. And I, at the time, owned 2 homes One was a rental this was around those lovely years of 2008. And the renter stopped paying. And the home was empty for 14 months. The home I was living in, turns out I had a loan on it. Some of you will remember these terms, interest-only negative amortization. So I'm struggling, I'm floating bills. I'm paying one bill as I get to the next, because in 2008, not a lot of people were doing personal training. My very wealthy clients would come in and say, oh, I talked to my husband, the stocks are down, we're gonna need to pause training. So not only was I not making the money I used to make, not only was I in and out of court, I can remember being on the phone with someone in customer service over that home, and she said, "Hun, given your situation, you can never pay this home off. These loans are illegal now." And the best thing that happened, one house was short sold, one went back to the bank. Tough times for a single parent. And what I didn't know is that there was going to be a silver lining in all of this, because I worked really hard. I built teams of personal trainers. I built multiple streams of income. I wrote a book. It made me who I was not. Stress levels, if someone said, what's your stress level? We talked a lot about this here. I would say, well, mine's about a 16 every day. I can tell you for the last several years, my stress level has been a 0 to a 2 under any and all circumstances. I had all these self-help books. I bought them all. And I looked at those books one day and I said, they all lead to the same place. It's an inside job. And I decided, I made a clear decision, I was going to do the inside work. When I say do the work, I went to church, I went to meditation, I prayed, I read all the books, I hired every practitioner out there. I hired business coaches and consultants. I mastered skill sets. And it was a few years ago that I realized I could not be the person I am today without going through all of that stress and the trials that I went through. I could not become who I was going to be unless I went through all of that, as hard as it was. So, we all know that we go through things for reasons and they're lessons, but when you go through tough times, if you have that foundation of knowing who you are, of knowing you'll be okay, of knowing this is just a life lesson and a process, you really tap into this thing called inner peace. And where artificial intelligence combines with emotional intelligence, the way that your friends and family and people out there on the internet are going to react and respond, when you start to understand that, you realize everything is coming from you. Everything. You have a choice. You can cultivate how you're going to react and respond. So I wrote this book on virtual wealth, on how to create revenue and relationships. And on page 118 is a list of high vibrational words. This is a big deal, folks, because when you use words like love and caring and assistance and profitability, remember when I said it's context, not content? When the crisis goes down, when we've got to convince the board member or upper management to opt in to get results, the words that we use, the thoughts that we have are critical. So I'm going to ask all of you to challenge yourselves to take complete and total full responsibility for these issues within our organizations. And I'll tell you what, in that gym, when someone came in and there was a problem, if there was a trainer who showed up and didn't fulfill their obligation and charged someone for a dozen sessions, I was the person who did all those sessions. Or I was the person who said, I will cut the check and bottom my checkbook to make it right. And when you take full responsibility for the issues as well as the outcomes, and you realize that everything is coming to you and through you, you are going to make miracles happen. Now, all of you are equally important here. And remember when I said to give is to receive? The joy when you can cut the check and bring together people for the charities. Some of you know our friend Marilyn Perlman here, Atlanta Cause Marketing, pairs businesses with charities. Every person, every business should have a personal charity to represent and get involved with. I don't mean you got to jump up and get on another board, but when my birthday comes, people know that my charity is the Tutu Desk campaign. My friend Mia Potter introduced me to Mapitso Rivera, the ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce of South Africa, who is Desmond Tutu's niece, and Desmond Tutu's daughter, Tandy Tutu. The day that Mapitso came and they were clearing their calendar for me to meet Tandy Tutu, the day that we came up to the Buckhead Club, and I'm sitting here with Tandy Tutu, and she and Mapitso are blessing my book for success. The day that she said to me, perhaps one day, Tandy Tutu said, perhaps one day we will be in the who's who. Let me tell you what, we couldn't get out of the building without people cutting checks and giving cash and giving cards, because people want to help. They want to reach out and help. This charity, the Tutu Desk campaign, for $20, you can give to a charity that will provide a desk, because in South Africa, 95 million people don't have a desk. 95 million children do not have a desk. We don't even know what poverty is in this country. They don't have clothes to bring the babies home from the hospital. We have to remember, we are the 1% in this room. We are the leaders. We are the educated. We are the wealthy in this room. You know what? We may think there's debt or the bank account may be a little bit low. I don't know about you. I've never gone hungry a day in my life. I grew up in an upper middle class family. I grew up with education. My parents said, you're going to college. Those trials I went through, that's nothing compared to what these people live with in second and third world countries. We have resources. We have ways in which to handle problems. So I challenge all of you to become a leader, to take full responsibility in your own life. And here's the big concept that I want to leave you with. You've got to put the self-care first. We talked a little bit about that, but I mean the self-care for you as a person, the self-care within your organization, the self-care within your business, the self-care within that board, the prioritization of cybersecurity. Because when you put self-care first, if I didn't put self-care first all those years, I wouldn't be where I am today. If I didn't make 10 minutes to take care of myself and do that inner, the work, whatever that is, whatever that means, it's prioritization, it's focus, it's the high vibrational words, it's becoming resilient, it's flipping the script when things aren't going so well. It's coming from that heart-centered place, like Miguel was consoling that service worker. It's literally putting the most important people first, putting the most important things first, prioritization of the things that will evoke the result that you want. It's really simple. People are your connection. People are your connection. You made a connection here in the room, and you found out what's important. You didn't learn how to walk by yourself. You didn't go to college by yourself. We cannot prioritize cybersecurity by ourselves. We've got to educate other people, but no one is going to listen to you unless you find out what's in it for them in their life, in their business, and in whatever it is that they want, so that you can have a meeting of the minds and make things happen. So most people forget this. We are emotional, spiritual beings first. Emotional, spiritual beings in this human body thing, having an experience for just a little bit of time. And time is our most precious commodity, right? We get 24 hours for the day. Did we connect? Did we pay it forward? Did you find out what somebody else wants? What's important to them? I'm going to leave you with one last story. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm online shopping for some dresses for this event. And It's early in the morning. I'm lounging in bed. I get up to take a shower. I glance at my phone and I say, wow. I get a message from a friend of mine that says, I'm going to be really vulnerable here. Some really bad things happened in my life, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I'm trained as a social worker, and I think, good Lord, I really hope this isn't a worst-case scenario. I take a look at I call him immediately, no answer. I take a look at his Facebook, again, AI, and I see something very out of character that says, could someone come to my house and give me a haircut? Now, this person's a business professional. And thankfully, the phone rang 20 minutes later, and it was him, and he was crying, and he'd been in an abusive relationship. We think of this normally happening to women. This was a man. So I had reached out that day and said, listen, I'm here. I will talk to you, but I can't do this alone. We're going to need some other players on the team. So I asked on one of my social media sites. Now, I will tell you, I had 12 people on my email list. I know thousands of people. I've met over 12,000 people that are in my phone. I posted on social media, and I said, we have a situation with someone who has been through a situation, and we need support. And within 24 hours, over 20 people responded and said I'd be willing to talk to him. I'd be willing to help. I'd be willing to do whatever it takes. Now we're talking people with big schedules, professionals, people that run businesses, people that are mental health professionals said, can I have the number? 2 of the people in this room today, Ann and Mie, spent an hour on the phone with him that night. That's the power of social media. That's the power of artificial intelligence combined with emotional intelligence to get a buy-in and an opt-in with someone who says, I really didn't think I was going to make it. Another professional offered to work with him. They've had a couple of sessions. Folks, that was 2 weeks ago. He's okay. He's okay. He's really okay. He said, I have friends. I have people. He hadn't eaten in a week and a half. How do you think someone's psyche is who's devastated and been in an abusive situation, who's been crying on the floor with no food and no water in them for a week and a half? That's a crisis situation. Now, I could not handle that situation by myself by any means. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about what change you want to evoke when it comes to cybersecurity. I want you to think about someone you can share your values with, the importance of getting this education in place, of getting the boards to recognize this topic, because I know all of you here, you've had some takeaways that will make this a top priority. But it's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that. Emotional intelligence is understanding how someone else is going to react and respond, and it's forward thinking. Now, I don't know what you know about quantum physics, but quantum physics is where the human being, who is a spiritual being, literally evokes change exponentially. The word virtual means no boundaries. It doesn't even have a defining definition. Virtual means exponential. The word wealth means the accumulation of possessions and money, if you look it up in the dictionary. Now, I got this idea when I was about 19 years old that wealth was health, mental and emotional health. Remember, I come from a family of crazy, like most of us. But I said mental health, emotional health is wealth. Then I got into physical health. We've clearly established with Dr. Carolina and Lee Haney that health, physical health, is wealth. We know financial stability and health is wealth. We know that spiritual development is wealth. We know that mastery, is a system. Mastery is understanding. I will tell you, there is nothing in this world that you cannot master. I'm living proof. I've helped thousands of people change their lives with scaling businesses. I've helped people change whatever it is they thought that their mind couldn't change. Your mind is your most powerful muscle. Now, I've got a gift for you, a couple of gifts today. Gift number one, I want you to track all wins. Anything that you've done in your life or your day or your week, if it's a win, I want you to write it down. I had a coach years ago, he said, this is critical to your development. He said, critical to your success, critical to changing your picture. I want you to track the wins. This is a big deal. I get a list of wins, 3 pages long, emailed to me automatically. There's automation twice a day. Track your wins. Really important. The next gift that I have for you, if you're that person that says, hey, I could use some help in terms of moving my life and my business, particularly if you're someone who wants to go virtual and go bigger, there's a piece of paper on your table that will tell you about a profit strategy session with me. There's a QR code. You can book an appointment with me. And in that appointment, what I'll do is take a look at where you are, where you want to be, some roadblocks that have maybe been in your way, and I will give you some tools to move in the right direction immediately, and I will tell you about my virtual wealth program, in which I help people get more time, more money, and more joy, bliss, and happiness within their life. So I've got 5 appointments open. Grab with the QR code. You can grab an appointment with me if you'd like to have a conversation. The third gift that we have for you on your table, the #1 Amazon best-selling book, Virtual Wealth. So this is a gift for you, and I want you to read it. Now, page 1 has a quote from me, and if you turn to page 1, miracles happen when you share your vision with others who believe in you even before you believe in yourself. Miracles happen when you share your vision with others who believe in you even before you believe in yourself. Miracles happen in your life, in your business, in your relationships. You see, the mind is exponential. In the quantum world, things are coexisting. You keep thinking about something and focusing about it. We heard Mr. Bill Bliss. What did he say? He said, you know, when you order that new car and then you see it everywhere, that is quantum physics. That is the divine and manifestation coming through you and to you, a heightened sense of awareness. So what I want you to know is there is nothing that you cannot materialize and manifest. Folks, I've met stage 4 cancer survivors that don't have cancer. Why? I've met thousands of people. My son said once, Mom, somebody walked out of a hospice. My friend Ursula was working with a man who literally walked out of a hospice and lived 8 years when he was told he had 30 days to live, 2 stage 4 cancers. I met the man. I went back, I said, son, I met the man. He was driving, he had a book, he was focused on surviving. Miracles happen when you share your vision with someone else and they believe it before you know it and believe it. And I will tell you something, belief system trumps all. Belief system trumps all. I've worked with thousands of people, and I will tell you, what are we as healers and practitioners listening for? We're listening for the belief system. What are we doing? We're holding a vision. What are we building? Key word, we heard it earlier, trust. The #1 factor in whether someone is going to get better when they work with someone, the #1 factor, do they believe the practitioner believes they will get better? Do they have a good working relationship with the practitioner? And the highest vibration is love. Fall in love with your board. Fall in love with upper management. Fall in love with your client or your prospect. Because when you come from that high vibration of love, they know it, you know it, and it makes things easy. I met Keon over him eavesdropping on my table, and you can't help but fall in love with this big teddy bear of a guy who wants to fix the cybersecurity problems of the world. And all of us are here on your team, Key. All of us are here. I wouldn't miss this conference for all the world this year or next July. So I'm going to ask all of you to, when you leave here, take full responsibility and do one thing. Send love ahead to any and all situations, any and all things that you want to put out there, the things you want to manifest, to the topic of cybersecurity, to that board that needs to embrace the concept and make miracles happen. And my time's up. Thank you.